In this video, where to stay in Tulum, Mexico. Now, this video is not going to be a fancy video with fly-through footage of hotels and fancy pools. Rather, this video is going to be focused specifically on the logistics of where to stay. At MyLatinLife, we're all about the logistics, and we know that where you stay in a city, what neighborhood you stay in, has a really big impact on your experience overall in the city. And so in Tulum, I'm going to break down the map here into 4 different regions of Tulum so that you can choose maybe which area of Tulum makes the most sense for you to stay. Now, at a high level, the 4 areas of Tulum, in my mind, this is not scientific at all, but this is how I think about it. One is the zona hotelera, which is basically the staying on the beach, essentially. So that's one option, is staying in the beach. And then another option is staying in Tulum Centro, which Google Maps defines as this rectangle-ish area here. But you could actually probably even zoom that out to make that a little bit larger and say that this whole thing is the Centro at this point. And then you also have this area called La Valeta, and also this kind of whole area basically between Centro and the beach that's constantly growing, lots of constructions, but chances are a lot of the Airbnbs that you are seeing are in this area that's basically between Centro and the beach. And then the 4th area, I would just call this West Tulum. There's this area called Aldea Tulum, which is more locals, La Union, Colonia Cristal. And there's actually a fair number of cenotes and hotels, and even some of the fancy electronic music venues are out here in the west side of Tulum. Okay, the Zamna is one of the more famous examples, so you'd probably be surprised that the Zamna is all the way out here. So those are kind of the 4 areas at a high level in Tulum. And where you stay, which one of these 4 areas that you stay in is going to have a really, really big impact on your experience in Tulum. So quick zoom out in terms of where we are on the map. Obviously, we're in the Yucatan Peninsula. We're in the state of Quintana Roo. Maybe a lot of people don't know that. The name of the state is called Quintana Roo. It's not Roo, it's Roo. So Quintana Roo is the state, okay? And the Cancun airport, just so you know, which is most likely the airport that you're going to fly into Cancun from when you try to get to Cancun, to Tulum rather. So how far away is that? So how far is Tulum from Cancun? So you're looking at a 2-hour drive. There are many, many buses that do this route. The most famous or well-known of which is called the ADO or the ADO bus. So I highly recommend taking the ADO bus from the airport if you're on a budget. It's cheap. I think they maybe charge around $15, and it runs basically 24/7. So it doesn't matter if you show up at 4 in the morning, there's going to be a ADO bus that's going to take you from the Cancun airport all the way to Tulum. Now, recently, there's also the Tulum airport that just got built and is already operational in late 2024. I haven't had the chance to fly into here yet, but it's operational, and I'm sure they're adding new routes all the time. So there is a chance that you're going to fly directly into Tulum. You'll notice that the airport here, the Tulum International Airport, is a little bit out of town. Not too far out of town, but a little bit out of town. Enough such that you're basically going to have to take a taxi or some sort of transportation. And guys, keep a lookout that there's basically a taxi mafia or monopoly where you're going to get super overcharged for your taxis from the Tulum airport into downtown Tulum and to get to your Airbnb. But also the same thing is the case coming from Cancun. That the taxis are going to charge huge money to bring you from the Cancun airport to Tulum. Probably over $100 US to make that trip, okay? And maybe even more. So that's a little bit of the high-level logistics about how you're going to come into Tulum. There is, of course, also the Tren Maya stop, the Mayan train stop. which let's take a look at where that is exactly, the Tren Maya stop. Okay, well, that's not it. But anyway, so we'll keep going with the video. But just so you know, there is a Tren Maya stop here somewhere. Okay, here we go. Estación Tren Maya Tulum. Okay, so this is actually quite a bit closer to the city, the Tren Maya stop. And that's an option as well, is from the Cancun airport, you could take the Tren Maya from the airport to the Tulum stop. And then from the Tulum stop, you're probably then going to need a taxi. And obviously, you'll save quite a bit of money on that taxi versus taking it from the Cancun airport. They're still probably going to try to overcharge you, honestly. Maybe you can get a friend to come pick you up or something. But that's some of the logistics. That's some of the entry points into Tulum, either the Tulum airport, the Cancun airport, and the Tren Maya stop here. And then if you want to see where the bus terminal is, the bus terminal is much more centrally located in the city, right? So this is the ADO bus terminal, and I think there's one or two more bus terminals as well for the colectivos, which are like the little vans that you can get. But the ADO bus terminal is right in the city, so this is going to be good logistics. And this might play into maybe potentially a reason you might want to stay in the Centro area, is that if you stay in the Centro area, then you can take the bus right to Centro, and you could quite potentially just walk directly to your Airbnb from the bus station. Okay, so that's some of the logistics of the transportation. Now let's start talking about a little bit about kind of the vibe of the different areas of Tulum. So first and foremost, if you come to Tulum, you probably obviously want to go to the beach. The thing about the beach, just so you know, it's super expensive to stay on the beach. Like, you know, you're probably looking at, I don't know, $250 a night or more for a hotel on average, and which in and of itself isn't that bad. The only problem is that well, there's a couple problems. One is you're quite disconnected from Centro, and then two is there's not a lot of amenities on the beach, where there's basically no grocery store. There's not really going to be many gyms there. What other amenities might you want? Basically, all those types of normal city amenities, you're just not going to find that right on the beach. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind, is that if you want to be closer to the amenities, obviously the best place for amenities is going to be in Tulum Centro. Okay, so Tulum Centro is going to have the best amenities. It's also probably going to be one of the cheapest. So your cheapest options are going to be Tulum Centro, and then maybe potentially also out west here if you find a good deal. Now, Tulum Centro is going to be loud. The beach is going to be loud. The beach is going to have a lot of traffic. Downtown's going to be pretty loud as well. So downtown or Centro is very big. So you might want to think about, if I'm going to stay downtown, at very least try not to stay near any of the nightclubs. Make sure you're not near any of the bars, and maybe try to be near a grocery store or some of the amenities that you might need. So, for example, here is a supermarket, the Mi Bodega Aurrera, and I know there's a couple other supermarkets here as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And then this area in here, La Valeta. So part of La Valeta is quite close to the bus station and to downtown, where it is quite walkable. Like if you're kind of in this upper north area of La Valeta, you are quite walking distance to downtown and some of the amenities and food options and everything downtown. But if you're in the middle here, like if you're in all this stuff, all this like Kuntak, Tulum, and Mystic Gardens and all this type of stuff right in the middle, you are very far from both the beach and downtown, which means that you're going to be dependent on taxis or a rental car or some sort of form of transportation to get anywhere, because this is almost too far to walk to the beach and definitely too far to walk to Centro, right? So that's something that you need to keep in mind, is that I know there's going to be a lot of Airbnbs kind of in here, but you're going to get lost. Like, look at this. It's an absolute labyrinth. B, your taxi is going to have a hard time dropping you off and picking you up, and you're going to be calling taxis. You're going to be saying, hey, pick me up from the Ruby Tulum, and they're not even going to be able to find this thing half the time, okay? So that's something that you want to keep in mind. I mean, it's going to have pretty cool nature, and a lot of these are really, really impressive visually. Like, you look at these things and you're like, this is so sick, and you see it on Airbnb or on Instagram and you want to book it, because a lot of these things, like, this is all brand new construction, so it's all pretty nice. But logistically, I find that it's not a great option. There are some, like Kukulkan and some of these, that are very close to the beach, and maybe this could be a good option where you're really, really close to the beach, but maybe not paying beachfront prices. Okay? But this stuff in the middle is something that I'd probably avoid. But then this stuff up at the top where you're like really kind of in the center of Valletta, and you got all these food options, and you got taco places, and you're near the bus station, and you're near the basketball court, and you're near the nightclubs and all this type of stuff. This could be a great option, like this kind of upper area of La Valletta. Great option. This is great. But this in the middle option, I would really try to avoid it. And then maybe the like couple of options that are right near the beach. I guess this could be cool if you want to be near the beach and you kind of have that exit here. But that's something to keep in mind. And then out west, you know, who's going to want to stay out west? I'd say that out west here kind of appeals to maybe more of like a hippie type person who wants to be closer to nature, who wants to be away from the riffraff, but also be close to the highway, which is actually quite a benefit, because if you're close to this highway, that's going to make it easy for taxis to pick you up. It's going to make it easy to go do activities, like to go see some of the Mayan ruins and stuff like that. So in some ways, being right on the highway here, or being like, you know, sort of right off the highway here, is actually better than being all the way in the middle here, where there's just so many twists and turns to get to you. Whereas if you're just, you know, turn right off the highway and you're there, I mean, that could be potentially a good option. I think these are a lot more local areas as well, where, you know, this is a lot of these communities are probably marketed towards locals and marketed towards Mexicans as opposed to foreigners on vacation. So that's something to keep in mind. That might be something that you're looking for, and it might be easier to get, you know, cheap 6-month and 12-month rentals out here. Okay. As mentioned, there are a couple cool venues and restaurants and so forth along this stretch of the highway, and it's constantly building out. It's constantly growing. Maybe this would be a pretty good area to buy real estate. I don't know. But that's something that you need to keep in mind, is that this is kind of like an area apart, and there's not too many routes to kind of get across. Like, you literally cannot get across to the sort of beachfront area at this point in time without essentially going into downtown and then taking one of the main roads towards La Valletta and the beach that way. Okay? So hopefully that makes sense. We probably could go into even more detail about some of these areas within Tulum Centro, because there are a lot of micro areas within here. One thing I would point out, though, is that the Unidad Deportiva, which is kind of the sports park, might be a cool place to be near if you want to play basketball, if you want to play on a soccer team, right? And be in different leagues. So that is something that's pretty cool, and you get access to a lot of stuff here. So this is kind of like the beating heart of downtown, is sort of between the Unidad Deportiva and the Adeo station that we talked about, and you can see that there's all kind of Oxos and other little parks and so forth around here. Okay, so this is kind of like the beating heart of the Centro, sort of in this area. Now, getting just a little bit more specific again about the hotel zone and where to stay, because obviously it is a huge stretch of beach spanning 5-10 kilometers. So maybe the beating heart, quote unquote, of the beach area would probably be the Taboo Beach Club, which is really, really famous, and then also Papaya Playa Project. So we looked this up. And Papaya Playa is a very important place too that has lots of parties. So that's Papaya Playa Project. Now, as we get to wrapping up this video on where to stay in Tulum, highly recommend you ask your host to provide an exact address that where you're going to be staying, because a difference of even 1 or 2 blocks can make a huge difference in your experience. It's a loud city. There's a lot of partying. People come for a good time, not a long time. And so what I try to do is be close to the action while still being far enough away that you can get some good sleep, which means that you're probably going to want to be at least a 5-10 minute walk from the nearest bar, making sure that you're maybe still walking distance from the things that you want to be near so that you're not dependent on the taxis. Because again, taxis in Tulum are not like taxis in a normal city. They are much more monopolistic here, and they're going to overcharge you. So try to set up your life in Tulum in a way that you have everything that you need in walking distance, while also having at least a little bit of a buffer where you can sort of have a quiet place. Maybe you're in a bit of an enclave, a bit of a cul-de-sac or something like that, or in a quiet residential area where you can do your best to avoid the loud noise and partying that will very often go till 3, 4, 5 a.m. till sunrise in Tulum. So logistics are very important. Getting a good sleep is important as well. And I hope this video gave you a little bit of an overview of the different areas in Tulum. We went over the 4 particular areas where I try to divide the city, and I hope this video was helpful for you. If you enjoyed this video, you might also want to check out our video on Playa del Carmen. We have a similar video on Playa del Carmen, breaking down where to stay in that city as well. A lot of people come to Tulum first, and then they realize it's maybe not the best for long-term living, and then a lot of them end up in Playa del Carmen, which I think is much better for long-term living, 1, 3, 6 months or more. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and we'll catch you in the next video.